Whew, all right. Okay. All right. We're going to be talking about the weather here in Florida today because today it was a freezing 64 degrees this December 20th here in the panhandle of Florida. And for us, it may not seem like it to you, but for us Floridians, 64 is a little bit chilly. I've got a long sleeve shirt on. I'm actually wearing jeans. My flip-flops are at my house. I'm wearing real shoes. So it's definitely a little bit different than we're used to. But that's what we're going to talk about in today's video is the winter weather. So I guess it's not just going to be all winter. There is going to be a little bit of what I think they call fall. So it's going to be everything from October till about next March. We're going to go over it, and I'm actually going to talk about the weather as we've been having it this year, not just the average stats that we have. What is going on? It is Andrew with the Emerald Group right here in sunny Fort Walton Beach, Florida. And if you were thinking about moving to the Emerald Coast, which is the panhandle of Florida, go ahead and give us a call, text, email. All of our information is on the screen. We would absolutely love to help. And if you're trying to figure out everything there is to know about the Emerald Coast, you've definitely came to the right channel. That is what we are all about. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tap that little bell so that you'll be notified every time we do a new video. All right, so as I mentioned, it is a blistering 64 degrees as I drove into work this morning. A little chillier than I was expecting, so I'm completely suited up in what we call, Florida winter weather. Of course, it does get colder here, and that's exactly what we want to go over. I'm going to start in October, right when it starts getting a little bit colder. Now, this year, we've actually had it pretty good. It's been pretty warm all the way up till about even now. We've only had a couple of cold days, but they're far and few between right now, but it's not always like that. In fact, a couple of winters ago, it started like October 12th and didn't stop until like February. It was like the coldest year I've ever seen. So hopefully we're not going to have that anytime soon. And let's go ahead and get into October. All right, so for October, November, December, I'm going to have real stats of what it actually was this year, and the rest will be projected. So let's start in October. You're typically going to have a low of about 55 degrees and a high all the way up to 80 degrees. This leaves most of your daytime stuff easily in the 70s. You're still going to be sweating a little bit if you're running around too much, but for the most part, it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be shorts, flip-flops, and you're good to go. And in October, we had 4 days of rain, which is better than usual, I believe. But generally think around October, we're still kind of in hurricane season, so we're still generally getting a little bit of that blast. But only having 4 days of rain in October was pretty good. Now, our November this year, we had a couple of pretty cold nights, but I think it was like limited down to 2 or 3. We've got a low of about 46 in November and a high of about 71. I actually think that high was a little bit higher. I looked it up just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure most of the time it was around 72 to 74 in November, as I'm remembering it. But great November again. Shorts, flip-flops, t-shirt are good to go, and it only rained 6 days in November. Now we get into December. As I'm shooting this, it is December 19th or 20th, something like that. I know it's not going to come out for about another week or two, but we've got a low of 47 and so far a high of 64. So it has been a little bit chillier, but even 64 is pretty good. I know I kind of exaggerate that I'm wearing a long sleeve t-shirt and this hat and all that. It's not really that bad for us out here. I will say we are not, as Floridians, we're not acclimated to the cold at all, but it's not actually this bad. I'm exaggerating for the video's sake, obviously. And so far in December, we've had 7 days of rain, which is pretty high. That is one of the disadvantages here in Florida, I think, is when it does get cold, it does get rainy as well. But because we're not used to the cold anyway, we're generally trying to stay inside when it's too cold as Floridians. So I don't really think the rain's all that big of a deal because we're just going to hide out inside anyway. All right, now let's get into January, where we are stepping aside from actual numbers that have happened in 2021 to historical averages. And in January, those numbers are a low of 44 degrees and a high of 61 degrees with about 7 days of rain. Not looking forward to it at all. January is when it starts getting pretty painful for me personally. I don't like the cold. I really don't. In fact, I will take blistering heat over slightly chilly most days of the year if I could help it. So January will be a little bit rough for us, and as it generally is, that's when it starts getting pretty rough. If we have any sleet or ice or anything like that, it's generally going to be in the January or February months. Now, February doesn't change that much more than January, but it does tick up just a little bit with a low of 47 degrees and a high of 64 degrees, so a couple of different degrees points off, with about 7 days of rain. So February just continuing on the cold drudgery, hatred of just the cold weather, and then we're working our way up a little bit. Which brings us to March at a low of 52 degrees and a high of 69 degrees with about 5 days of rain. This is when it starts going back up on the upmend again. Floridians are now starting to get excited. We're getting ready. We're doing our summer plans. We're planning for Disney. We're going to go, do this. We're going to go do that. And it starts warming up to where we actually will go out and do a little bit more stuff. Now, just because it's wintertime doesn't mean it completely knocks us all out, but I will say I do notice a really big difference in the amount of people at restaurants going out to eat, going out and doing touristy stuff and shopping during that January, February. It feels like it goes pretty dark pretty quick, and then it starts ramping up pretty quick around March 15th, and generally almost every year. That also follows with our vacation rental schedule for the most part too. You'll generally start seeing that tick up around the March, April timeframe, and then really tick up in May, but this video isn't about that. So that is Florida weather, or that's Florida panhandle weather, the Emerald Coast as we call it, everything from Pensacola to Panama City. All of these averages were from right smack dab in the center of all of that right here in Fort Walton Beach. So I hope this was helpful to you if you are thinking about moving down. Again, we are a real estate company first. We would absolutely love to help, and we really like comments. So if you've been down here, if you've snowbirded before, that's what we call the people that like to come down here, get away from the freezing weather up north, come down here to the more temperate, 40s and 50s. If you've done that before, put a comment down below. I'd love to chat. And if you've visited Destin, Fort Walton Beach, any of this area, I would definitely like to hear any of your stories, your favorite places to go, things like that. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. See ya.